Thank you very much, Vitaly. Dear colleagues, my topic today is something often dismissed as played out, something that even seems to be under attack: diversity and inclusion. These principles are widely applied across the humanities, but within our field, their realization still has a long way to go. While I will touch on a few points related to Slavic studies generally, my primary focus will be on my specific area of interest, Ukraine. Colleagues from other disciplines often see Slavic studies as monocultural, rooted in notions of romantic nationalism. The persistence of the very term Slavic in our departments seem to reinforce an ethnic exclusion, a framing that has long shaped our field. And while I often find myself reflexively defending us in this situation, there is some truth in how we are perceived. It leaves me wondering, what then should I do in my teaching, research, and public engagement? Amid ongoing debates, it's encouraging to see you, my dear colleagues, expanding Ukrainian studies beyond current trends, promoting and diversifying it in the research and teaching. New books and initiatives on Ukraine's multiculturalism keep appearing, like the Canadian Institute of Ukrainian Studies program in Indigenous Crimean Tatar Studies, or the recent volume Minorities at War, Cultural Identity and Resilience in Ukraine. Nevertheless, cultural studies of our region remain shaped by power dynamics and by lingering colonial influences and struggles for dominance and for visibility in the shadow of that dominance. Visibility in this case is multisensory. It means seeing all possible sources and hearing all the voices, teaching diverse and inclusive materials, and addressing historical injustices. This is why the persistent limitations to primary sources in one dominant language or culture, limitations conditioned by history, politics, and demographics, call for conscious expansion. In considering practical steps I might take toward the goal of historical justice, I have conducted surveys with Crimean Tatar, Roma, Greek, and Jewish artists, voices from Ukraine's national minorities. And their insights reveal much about Ukraine's diversity and its evolving image globally. But above all, I wanted to hear how these individuals perceive their representation and the injustices they face. Diversity can be liberating, both historically and conceptually. And conceptually, in the sense of moving beyond ethnic exclusivity and embracing a broader inclusivity based on region, civic identity, and culture. And by culture, I do not mean the romanticized ethnicity-bound view thereof, a product of the imperial and Soviet legacy that still resonates in Slavic studies. Liberation here calls for rethinking the very term culture to reflect the region's dynamic multiplicities, including its various sexual identities, political ideologies, and diaspora communities. This broader understanding of diversity is especially relevant as global attention increasingly turns to Ukraine. However, even the gains made in inclusivity can still feel isolating. That is, while valuable efforts are being made to study and teach the many cultures of the region, these cultures are frequently treated as separate entities rather than integral parts of the unified whole. Returning to the survey, one central question, phrased in various ways, asked, do you feel that Ukrainian society has a sufficient awareness of your community's culture and history? And the predominant response, no, likely stems from historical and social factors, particularly the Soviet legacy, which at best include minority cultures in hegemonic and isolated ways. The current focus on Ukraine's defense and national identity, moreover, often paradoxically overshadows the evaluation of diversity. In response to the question,
Do you feel that the war and the participation of representatives from different nationalities contribute to better integration of these groups into the broader Ukrainian discourse? One participant replied, of course it does, with one caveat. For us, first we need to spill blood on the battlefield to earn that recognition and integration. It's not provided automatically. Another set of questions asked respondents about their recognition as Ukrainians internationally. In your opinion, is the global community aware of Ukraine's multicultural heritage and contemporary diversity? Are your communities represented in projects like anthologies or festivals? And responses indicated that while some representation exists, it remains limited. Global awareness of these communities and of cultural products in languages other than Ukrainian or Russian is still insufficient. And the mention of Ukrainian and Russian together highlights that for some, both languages exert a similar predominance, which is felt by the national minorities of Ukraine. And this feedback suggests ways in which I, as educator and advocate of Ukrainian culture, can help shift the alternative. For example, after reviewing over a dozen recent anthologies of contemporary Ukrainian literature, mainly poetry in translation to various languages, I found that while these collections are often used in our courses, and many of us have contributed to them as compilers or translators, not a single Roma, Crimean, Tatar, or Greek author was included. Yet almost every anthology included a translation from the Russian. An interesting tendency emerged during my survey and follow-up interviews. While there is a gradual shift toward Ukrainian among authors who have previously written in other languages, especially in Russian, representatives of minority communities often take deliberate steps to fight homogenization and emphasize their cultural individuality and visibility. For instance, one young Tauro-Romaic poet explained Azov Greeks' aspiration to switch from using the Cyrillic to the Greek alphabet as an effort to assert the community's presence. As an example of the marginalization of minorities in Ukraine-related publishing, one respondent noted that while anthologies dedicated to Crimean Tatar literature exist, they are seen as ethno-national preserves. The Crimean Tatar community has never been invited to contribute to pan-Ukrainian collections, and this situation reinforces separation rather than inclusion. By isolating minority voices into exclusive collections, these anthologies, whether intentionally or not, suggest that these voices are peripheral. Another set of questions focused on how cultural institutions and events abroad acknowledge Ukraine's multiculturalism. One respondent shared, I have visited numerous Ukrainian academic and public institutions in the diaspora. I have never encountered any mention of Ukraine's Roma heritage, let alone a celebration of our national holiday on April 8. I'm skeptical if anyone in these institutions even knows about this holiday. Another respondent voiced a similar skepticism. I know that in Western institutions, you teach about the Vyshivanka and Pisanka, and maybe one day you will mention our Meitan or Sherbenti. And this response highlights the focus on dominant cultural symbols to the neglect of cultural elements of other Ukrainian communities, in effect treating them as if they were not Ukrainian. This imbalance in recognition persists even after death, as those acknowledged in life remain in collective memory. Heartbroken, we hear of many outstanding Ukrainian artists and authors killed by Russia. Some are commemorated widely, yet others go unknown. And I would like to dedicate these final words to the barely recognized passing of a Greek Ukrainian poet, Natalia Kharakos, who perished at the age of 86 in a basement in Mariupol after her apartment building was destroyed, though she miraculously survived the initial strike. The image of her building's destruction became known worldwide, but Natalia, an iconic voice in Greek Ukrainian poetry, did not. May her memory and that of others whose legacy is shadowed by oblivion be a blessing. My comments today are not meant to undervalue the efforts of my esteemed colleagues who inspire my work, but rather to address matters I feel personally responsible for. I've started reading, translating, and engaging with voices I hadn't focused on before. And these conversations and interviews inspired me to translate poetry created in Crimean Tatar, Romani, and Tauro-Aramaic languages, works that are both beautiful and deserve to be explored and taught. My course, Cultures of Ukraine, explores languages, literatures, nationalities, and religions alongside such other culture shaping, such as sexual identities, political ideologies, underground movements, subcultures in the temporary occupied territories, and diaspora communities. I love Ukraine so much, and I promote it academically and publicly, but my love is not blind. I strive to get students and readers to see its complexities, its struggles, debates, vibrancy, and imperfections, all the things that make it not idealized, but real. Grateful to be on this journey with you, my dear colleagues.